So over to Sophie and Sarah.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you.
So,
I guess just as an intro, I'm Sophie. I'm one of the divisional heads of finance at Papworth.
Hi there. Sorry, I'm trying to do the tech bit at the same time. Sarah Brisbane, I'm head of commissioning and income at Royal Papworth, and I'm hoping you can see some slides.
Yep, all good.
Ah, fantastic, good stuff. Okay, right. In that case, I think we'll crack on. So, excuse me. So, I just want to start by really introducing Cambridgeshire as a collective. So, we're made up of 6 different organisations. As you can see coming on the screen now, they're quite varied organisations as well. So we've got obviously the ICB, we've got community services, mental health, university teaching hospital, specialist trust, as well as DGHs. And we, Sophie and I, really are here today to talk to you about how we came together as a collective and how we feel we are stronger as a collective, working together on learning and development in the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough system, and to talk to you about what we've achieved so far. So I guess the first question is, well, how do we start and why did we start this? And it really goes back to the HFMA National Awards. So at Papworth, we have been shortlisted for the last 3 years. And in 2021, when we received the highly commended, one of the things you do when you're shortlisted for an HFMA National Award is you have an interview with the judges. So it's just one of those moments where you sort of take a deep breath and you just get on with it. And we felt quite confident on the subject of sharing knowledge. We had our skills matrix at the time, which we'd shared with probably 50 organisations nationwide. It's being developed as a national tool as well, which is coming out very soon. But we got asked, what sharing have you done with your system? And it was kind of that little moment we think, oh God, no. We've shared nationwide, but really we haven't shared within our own system. So moving towards the world of ICBs, this really got us thinking about how we could share knowledge with our nearest and dearest. And with the backing of the deputies group, the deputy DOFs group last year, a group of like-minded colleagues from across those organisations in the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough system, passionate about learning and development, we formed what we call our system L&D group.
So we've been working together for about 15 months now. It's gone by quite quickly. And one of the first things we did was come up with a bit of a vision, which Sarah has kindly put up on the screen, which is essentially to make our system the best possible place to work. And we've also come up with 4 key objectives / kind of aims of areas that we wanted to focus on. So those were career development and progression, skills development, recruitment and retention, and innovation and improvement. So covering quite a wide range of areas. And what we did was kind of turn those into 4 different work streams within our smaller group. I'll go into those in a little bit more detail, but just before we do that, a bit of a mention on the kind of structure that we've got and how we fit into the wider ICS. So we've got our kind of original group of us keen individuals from the different organisations. We've got at least one person from each organisation within the ICS. And apart from SpecCom at the moment, which we are sadly missing, but we're hoping to re-engage with them and have them included going forwards. So we've got at least one member, and ideally we've got deputies in each organisation as well to have a bit more coverage. And we're from quite a wide variety of bands and different kind of financial areas. So we've got some income people, financial management, financial accounts, etc. So we've got quite a broad range of people in our kind of monthly group. We meet monthly on Teams, ably chaired by Sarah, and then we report back into the system deputies group on a monthly basis, and then they report into the system CFOs group on a quarterly basis, which might seem a bit kind of heavy in terms of formal reporting, but it's actually been quite useful for us in terms of having one real clear line of place to go for kind of asking questions and getting approval for things rather than us all individually having to go through our different processes. which obviously would take quite a long time. Everyone knows that that kind of thing takes much longer than you would like. So it's been quite useful for us to just have a real direct line up to the CFOs and hopefully make a bit progress more quickly. On to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. So a bit more around the work streams that we've got. We identified these work streams quite early on, and I thought I'd just talk through roughly kind of what we wanted to cover under each one. So for career development, we wanted to look at things like secondments, student networks, grad schemes and placements, apprenticeships, and talent mapping. And then skills development, we wanted to look at identifying skills gaps within our organisations and across the ICS, looking at awareness and promotion of all the different types of learning available and making sure that we were sharing those opportunities across a wide range of people. Recruitment and retention, pretty much self-explanatory. The one thing that we included in this that might not be obvious is the FFF accreditation. So we thought that was a key element of our kind of recruitment and retention strategy across the ICS. So that was included within that work stream. And then last but not least, innovation and improvement. So looking at better ways of working, sharing best practice, and hopefully doing some kind of automation of some of the processes that take us quite a long time. And we realized quite early on that that was a lot to cover for our tiny little group. So what we decided to do was pick one area of focus for each of those work streams so that we weren't overwhelmed. And we tried to focus on things that were either kind of high priority so they'd have a high impact, or things that we thought would be quick wins so that we could demonstrate that we were making some progress. So we started off with our 4 focus areas, which I think Sarah will put on the screen. Yep, those. And then we added a 5th, which was study policies, which kind of was cross-cutting across the different work streams. And I thought it would be useful just to kind of talk through the progress that we've made against each of those and what we've actually been able to achieve. So we have been slightly hampered by having year-end and budget setting in the middle of when we kind of got our stride going. So that has kind of slowed things down a little bit, but I think we're pretty happy with the progress we've made so far, with lots more still to do. So if I go down the list, first up was the student network. So we realised that we've got lots of students all across our different organisations doing different qualifications, each with kind of different arrangements in terms of bringing students together within the organisations. And we really wanted a way of bringing together all of the students across the ICS and being able to kind of share learning, etc. We already had quite a developed student network at CUH, so we decided that we would, rather than kind of reinventing the wheel, we would open that up on a quarterly basis to the students across the ICS. And to do that, we've identified a kind of student contact in each organisation to coordinate that. We haven't had a quarterly meeting yet, but I think there's one coming up soon now that we're over hopefully most of the audit period. And the plan is to really have a chance for all the students to get together, to share learning, maybe come, identify a study buddy, recognise each other when they go to First Intuition and don't realise they're sitting next to the person they email about invoices at Papworth. But also we were hoping to eventually have maybe external speakers come in to talk about interesting topics, study techniques, etc., so that we could do that on a wider basis and hopefully have a bit more attendance, because what it's like with a student network, 2 people turn up and it's not really a network, it's more of a chat. So it'd be nicer to have a bit more volume of people. So that's our student network. Then study policies linked to that, we've realised we've all got slightly different study policies within our organisations. Bit of a problem if you're kind of looking at moving between organisations, do they do the same qualification? Do they do apprenticeships? But also, I guess what we want to avoid is being able to poach staff from other organisations by having better or different study policies. So one of the things that we're in the process of doing is looking at all of our study policies and doing a bit of a comparison to check that they're kind of reasonably aligned, with also some organisational differences, I'm sure, but making sure that the key bits are there. So that was our second area of focus. Then ring-fence learning time. So this is something actually that Papworth came up with that we basically all wanted to borrow, which is exactly why we were doing this group in the first place, to share ideas. The basic concept is that everyone in finance across all of the different disciplines has 30 minutes of ring-fence learning time in the month. You might say that's not a lot, or you might say that is a lot, but the idea around the 30 minutes was that it's something that everybody should be able to do. It's not, 3 hours and you've got to take half a day over it. It's something you should be able to fit in even the busiest diary. So Papworth already had that implemented. At CUH, we've been doing it for the last couple of months. I have to say it's taken a little while to get the comms out and get people kind of engaged with it, but that's a bit of a work in progress. And the other organisations within our system are planning to launch this over the next couple of months. So what we're really hoping for is that this will become a kind of universal offering across the system, where we know that at least everyone is enabled and given permission to have that half an hour of learning time each month. So we can always report back on how that's going in a future meeting. Next up is accreditation, and I know we've got a slide coming up on that, so I won't steal Sarah's thunder, but I'm sure you all know what accreditation is anyway. And then lastly, automation of processes. So I'm sure everyone is aware that there's kind of increasing reporting requirements and, having a position at working day one. And we thought rather than kind of every individual organisation reinventing their own process for that, we wanted to set up a group who could come together and discuss that. So far, this is probably the area that we've had the least progress on, but we have now identified the members of the group and got volunteers from each organisation. And we're hoping to set that up in the next couple of months for people to come together and share ideas and come up maybe with a way of automating things if that's possible. So we're quite excited about what that group might come up with once they have met. And then on to Sarah for accreditation.
Thank you. So yes, accreditation. So this is the one, as Sophie said, that we have definitely achieved. And I just wanted to show you here. So this is in May 2022, so just over a year ago. This is where each organisation within Cambridgeshire and Peterborough stood in terms of accreditation. So as you can see, most of the organisations were not accredited. We had NWAFT at level 1 and we had Royal Papworth at level 2. So if we now go on a year, and this is the year that we've been working together as a group, you can see now all of our organisations within Cambridgeshire and Peterborough have an accreditation level. That the group in the grey in May 2022 have all moved and they've achieved their level 1, which we're incredibly proud of, and we worked very closely as a group to do that. And then as Royal Papworth, you can see have moved from level 2 to level 3, which again we are incredibly proud of. And just kind of sticking with that pride message, we asked all of our people to come up with a few words, which are coming very, very slowly for this slide, which you can read obviously when slides go out. Just looking at some of the main words here: benefits, commitment, opportunity, success. It's just been amazing, really. It's worked far better than I think any of us could have imagined. So really our message to you is, what's stopping you achieving more together? Because if we can do it in Cambridgeshire, then so can you. And we've seen those benefits now, and we're starting to reap the rewards of that collaborative approach to development of learning within our organisations. And not only that, I mean, you get to meet and work with colleagues from across the NHS family that you may not have done so before, as Sophie said earlier. So, really, what's not to like about that? So in terms of our next steps, there's quite a lot on here actually, which is really good. It just shows that we've got lots to do. Accreditation, yep, brilliant. We've moved to the right hand side, which is fantastic. We want more. We shall be supporting each other to reach the next level, and that includes the recruitment of more accreditation assessors across the patch. Having done this myself for the last couple of years, I have absolutely no doubt that undertaking this role helps immensely when you do your own organisational submission. So if there's anyone out there who's kind of thinking about it, I would certainly recommend that. As Sophie said, working day 1, early stages at the moment, but the next stage is a workshop. We've got the right people. We just need to get that together. As we achieve focus areas, we need to replace them with other things, and we're trying to look at a good mix of short-term and those that maybe require a little more work. So getting that balance right is important to keep the momentum going and see that success and see the outcomes from the work. And linked to this, we'll be looking into further innovation and examples of best practice. Quick wins, we know there are quick wins out there. A number of organisations have lunch and learn sessions, for example. I think at Addenbrooke's they call it hot topics. We've already discussed how we can expand that to the wider system, so maybe holding quarterly joint sessions. And in terms of engagement, this isn't all about the small group who meet monthly. We're looking to find the right people in our wider organisations for these task and finish groups. So bringing more of our colleagues into this culture of sharing and networking within the system. And as a group, we are encouraging each other to submit applications for awards and to think more about how we celebrate success, both within our own organisation and within the system. We are all doing some really good stuff, so let's shout about it. And we started this encouragement culture at the back end of last year for the regional conference in February, and as well as submitting far more applications for the regional awards, 2 out of the 6 award winners were from C&P, which is absolutely fantastic, but that's just the start. And we feel we're only going to get stronger. We feel like we've got a great foundation now from which to work, and we've got some really incredible people involved.
So just a few points of things that we kind of learned along the way that we thought it would be good to share if you are considering this journey in your own system. The first one up is dedicated time. So I think I'm right in saying that none of us have dedicated time in our own kind of normal job roles to do this kind of thing. And whilst that was kind of okay at the start with an hour a month, once we started doing things like accreditation, I think that become a bit more of a pressure. So it's a good idea to kind of get a bit of dedicated time agreed up front if that's possible. Next is the structure. So we would definitely recommend having that reporting structure that I mentioned earlier, where you can kind of go through the deputies and up to the CFOs of the ICS rather than trying to approve everything in your individual organisations. I think that also adds a bit of kind of pressure that if you've maybe got one person in the link that isn't necessarily engaged or hasn't got time, if it's kind of done it in that meeting, that kind of puts it in front of them and gets them to look at it. So that's quite useful. Senior support. So I think we probably all say we've got relatively good senior support at this point, but we did start the group quite organically. And so it maybe was there in different levels to start off with. So I think it's a good thing if you can to kind of get that early on. And that's kind of linked to the structure as well. And lastly, understanding each other. So I think we all came to the group with a preconceived idea of around what kind of finance is and what different bits of finance there are. And I think we've realised relatively early on that there was a bit of learning to do around what different finance teams do and what differences are there with commissioners and providers, etc. So that's I think you kind of need to understand those differences before you can make things consistent. So that's definitely something to do early on, understand the other organisations and really kind of learn what they do before you try and cram everything into kind of a one size fits all scenario, because I think that's a useful thing to do at the start. And then I think we've also got a few top tips. So the first one is to find some like-minded system colleagues. It's honestly been a lot better doing this kind of thing within the organisation when you've got a bit of backup from someone else. The added bonus, I guess, is the sharing, but also the fact that you can use that a little bit to leverage things within your own organisation, because you've got a direct comparison that's nearby. So you can say, Papworth have got level 3 accreditation, why can't we have level 1? And you just use that to generate a bit more interest. Found that works quite well. Structure we've kind of already discussed. Being an assessor, so Sarah mentioned that, and I have to say Sarah's expertise and knowledge around this from being an assessor really helped us in the accreditation process. We had quite a few sessions where we went through all of the requirements, and Sarah and her team were able to kind of share things they'd done and share knowledge that they had from looking at other organisations. So definitely would recommend that if you're looking at accreditation. Innovation, just trying something new. The 30 minutes was definitely new at CUH, and I think people have kind of embraced that and started to pick it up and use it. So I think, don't be afraid to put something out there. Sharing, really sharing as much as possible, and the whole purpose of this group is to share as much as we can, and I think we've definitely benefited from that. You know, rather than making your own induction checklist, CPFT shared theirs, we all adapted it for our organisations. It's just things like that that meant we didn't have to start from scratch, and I think none of us, I think would be fair to say, none of us would have achieved the accreditation without being able to share those things. And you know, we're all NHS organisations, so there's no reason why their policy isn't broadly relevant to you rather than you writing it from scratch. And then last up is, as Sarah mentioned, involvement of colleagues and the wider teams. I think it's good to have a kind of keen group of individuals, but you can't really make those changes within your organisation if you don't have the buy-in and the expertise from other organisations and other areas within your organisation. So I think that's been quite key in terms of trying to engage as many different areas of finance as possible to make things happen.
Fabulous, thanks, Sophie. And I think, last but not least, what's really important is to celebrate those achievements. I think, yeah, we need to be better at it, but we're learning, and actually having so many of those organisations in our system get their L1 this year has really helped this and made us think about this a bit more. So, oh, and it's going again. Hopefully it'll go on to the next slide, which is just being a little bit of a pain on, so bear with me. There we go. So we just wanted to leave you with a few thoughts from Professor Michael West from the King's Fund Leadership Summit in 2017 on how we can ensure collaboration across boundaries in healthcare. So I probably don't need to read this out, but I'm going to anyway. Success of these collaboratives will depend upon the compassionate system leadership across organisations that historically have little experience in working together to bring about change at the scale and pace that now seems essential. That's definitely been applicable to us, you know, particularly in terms of culture. And we know what's required to meet the challenges facing the NHS, high levels of innovation within and between organisation. And now the key is for leaders in every organisation to make it happen by recognising that innovation takes courage, persistence and confidence. And that's something that is, to get that courage and be courageous is a lot easier as it is a group, and you're stronger as a group. And that's where we feel we're at the moment. So that's the end of our presentation, but certainly not the end of the good work we're doing. And perhaps for you and your system, it's maybe the beginning of a new chapter of working together. So we'd be happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. That was really informative, and having just had the system conversation about us working more collaboratively, had colleagues join our development day yesterday. Oh no, the day before yesterday, and then colleagues from our organisation went to help present at the ICB development day the following day. You know, your presentation, I need to steal quite a lot of that, so thank you for that. I think we've got time for one. I want to finish by 1:15 so that we can try and catch up a little bit. So Karen.
Hi, really interesting presentation. I was just interested to know how you actually kicked this off and how people sort of volunteered. Was it a struggle to get people involved, or did you seem to have sort of some emphasis and encouragement from others to get involved?
Should I kick off, Sophie, and I'll hand over? I think at the start, you know, certainly at Papworth, learning and development is so well embedded that it kind of seemed natural for us to take it to the next step of sharing to the system. And really that was done probably through Sophie Harrison, is our deputy DOF, who made those contacts at that level, who basically then went back to their organisation, said who's interested basically. And Sophie, I'm going to hand over to you then, because I'm hoping that you put your hand up and said, yeah, I'll go for it.
Yeah, so I think CUH is a slightly different story because I don't think we've got quite the kind of L&D development that Papworth have, and we're kind of riding on their coattails a little bit. So it was more a case of asking for volunteers, and I stuck my hand up. I think, to be honest, to start off with, you just need one keen person to start the ball rolling and get things going, and then hopefully that person, or at least I've tried to involve others and try and convince others to get involved. So I think start with one and then grow it from there.
Jenny, if it's really quick.
It's quick. Karen, I'd love to link up with you because one of the things I think would be really interesting is a Power BI innovation forum, and Milton Keynes were very present yesterday on the Power BI training. There were lots and lots of people. So I was talking at that at Power BI training yesterday about setting up a national Power BI forum, which I put forward to the innovation board, but I think that would be an interesting innovation for the whole of the NHS. So just if anyone's interested, it's something I'm trying to move forward quietly. So I'm trying to make some noise.
Thank you.
That's it.
No, that's really helpful, and SNE would like to be involved in that. Yeah, we love Power BI. Okay, right. So it's 12:15, and can we take a 10-minute break and come back at 12:25